The Weekly starts now.
I'm Denise Durson, Executive Editor of ProBuilder, and I'd like to welcome Scott Sedam, founder of TrueNorth Consulting. Thanks for joining me today, Scott.
Hey, always good to be here.
Our subject today is lumber, the cost of which, as we know, is having a serious effect on home prices and the home building industry in general. Can you give us your thoughts on where the lumber situation stands today?
You know, if I said anything really definitive, I'd be accused of lying 2 weeks from now. Everyone's talking about it. I'm reading constant posts about it, and no one really knows what's going to happen. It seems like it almost has to come down somewhat, but you don't hear people talking like, it's going to be back to where it was 12 to 18 months ago. I think a significant increase is probably close to permanent, and as long as home building stays up where it is. But the people are all over the map on it. There's just nothing really clear right now. I wish I had something more definitive than that to say.
Well, I know because of that, some builders feel increasingly like they have to just bite the bullet and spend the money and, just keep on keeping on. Is there anything else they can do?
Well, it's funny. It's come up as a question recently in a couple of presentations. In fact, I did one yesterday on Builder of Choice, a webinar, and it was one of the questions at the end. And I started thinking back over all we've done in lean over the years. We've done 220 lean process implementations with about 150 builders. And you know what? It is a constant concern now. And in the ones in the past, I added up some numbers, and we've had over 300, if you combine lumber yards, framers, truss companies, panel, EWP engineered wood. We've had over 300 of those participate in these lean sessions we've done, and they have suggested more than 2,000 improvement ideas. And walking these houses over the years with the engineers, we have some engineers and an architect that we bring in on some of the projects who are really good at get it. I have to say that the majority of architects and engineers don't get it in terms of building efficiently. Architects are good at building beautiful stuff, but not necessarily efficient. Engineers are good at making sure you meet every code, but not necessarily efficiently. So in working with those guys and walking to houses and hearing from these 300 suppliers and trades, I started laying everything out and went, there's some really definitive things that we can do to reduce our cost of lumber, engineered wood, truss, whatever you're using, even though the price is high. So I kind of laid out a quick 10 slides on this, and it's going to become a column here shortly and probably a presentation with the typical 50 slides before too long. But so this is kind of introducing this new piece. So ready, and I'll pop up the slides if you don't have any questions at the moment, Denise.
Nope, sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, we hit the share button here. And it should open it up. Okay, combating the high cost of lumber and a lean strategy. So what can we do? I'm going to throw this out here really quick. I've used this in some presentations before, but it comes back all the time. This idea, old French author who wrote once years ago, the voyage of discovery is not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. So what we find is what we have to do is get all the constituents here, which we're going to talk about in just a second, to look at the same things they've always looked at for years and years, but put on new eyes and look at it in a different way for the opportunities we have there to get more efficient. Now, let me say right up front, we're never about dumbing down houses, make them hard to sell, and we're always going to meet code. And in maybe 5% of the cases, it's rare that it's more than that, you might want to beat the code. The classic example is a second floor master. You can build one of those and meet the code, and every time your customer walks across it, the floor bounces and they hate you. So there are cases where you want to make sure you beat the code enough to make sure to keep the customer happy. But again, what we see is 30 to 40% of the time. We see some builders 50 to 60% of the time who are exceeding code. for no good reason. That's all. It's not making the house one bit better. It's just burying wood behind the walls. So keep in mind this idea of new eyes. A real quick definition of what's lean building. There's a science to it, a culture of discipline. The discipline word's really important. And a set of tools directed toward the relentless pursuit, identification, and destruction of waste in all forms. Product, process, plants, anywhere you can find it. You identify it, you measure it, and do everything you can to get rid of it. If you can't get rid of it completely, then we set about saying, is there a way we can do it more efficiently? And that's what lean is about. It's about providing value. It's not just cost. The old engineering definition of value is benefit over cost. So what we preach is you can't talk about cost unless you also talk about benefit. And you can't talk about benefit unless you also talk about cost. That's where you get value.
Right.
So keep that in mind. So we see these things everywhere. And I've come up with some categories of this. I think I'm probably not completely done with this yet. But the first one that's obvious that we see, I've been in a couple states recently. I think I won't even say what the states were, but with a couple builders that are new clients where the overbuild was incredible. And you see things like this. It's just we've got hundreds. I've probably got thousands of overbuilt slides. But in here, like really putting way more timber in these corners and stuff that's needed. And interesting, they're doing efficient with their small, just using the 2x4 for this header. That's showing their thinking, because by the time you put the drywall and the trim around everything, it's plenty stiff. Putting in cripples in here or a double 2x4 won't do you any good at all. Let me check. Can you see my cursor, Denise?
I can.
Okay, on some of the systems, you have to go pick a cursor off, but Zoom's great. You can use your own cursor. But they've got way more timber in this. And now at these studs being $8-9 a foot, this right here, you've got $50 sitting in here more than you need.
Wow.
We have thousands of pictures. Here's one where they decided to make a transition wall, and they use double 2x6s and double 2x4s. And again, you've got a lot more wood in here. You need to support it. And this is just a great one. This is just a corner with a bathroom over here and a hallway and the entrance to a master bedroom or a secondary bedroom over here. And what was the framer thinking here? You've got even 1x stuck in here too. And this is all near and dear to me. I spent my college years working for the largest commercial lumber yard in Ohio, and it was a loader, put together loads of lumber. And so I still can recognize a difference between a 2x10 and a 2x12 at 20 or 30 feet. And I never knew how valuable that was going to be to me. But so I've got mad skills when it comes to looking at lumber anyway. And then here's just a classic. So again, we get just to mention we had overbuild back here. And now this one is the term I'm using for this is overspec. Okay. So look what we got here. We got this is a great product, a level, truss joist, okay, timber strand. This is really good stuff, but it costs a lot more than a couple 2x6s in here. However, look at this up above. Look at your TGIs running laterally left to right. And trust me, we checked, looked on both sides. There's no weight here at all. There is none. All you need is a 2x4. You might have a local inspector that gives you grief about it. Okay, put two 2x4s in there, but that's going to cost you a fraction of what this timber strand header. And nothing against timber strand. They're great products, but they don't want you to buy them and put them places that don't need, I'm sure. So there's overspec. So we got another category here that I need to have it called over something. But right now it's just called what it is, which takeoff errors. Well, this was sitting behind a house. This happened to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I remember it well, only about hour and a half, hour and 45-minute drive from where I sit right here. And the house was done completely. The houses on either side were done. It wasn't like they had another house next door they're going to use it for. It was the last house done on that street, and sitting behind it in today's dollars between the OSB, 2x6s, and you've got long leg 2x4s in here. We are looking at something over $500 for its lumber.
Wow.
Sitting behind the house. And it turned out it was a newer model, and no one had gotten around to really nailing down the takeoffs. So here's something that everybody can do just right now. And if this is all you do, you're going to find a lot. And that is, any new model you have, the first 3 times you build it, you need to do a takeoff check for everything in the house. And it's going to include drywall and other aspects of the house, insulation, what's left over. Now, if you're turnkeying, generally speaking, they will do a lot less of this waste. They'll be more careful and they'll move it from house to house. Not always. We've seen turnkey waste like this too. But in this case, they were buying the labor, the framing, and the timber second. And we did find out that the framer had said something to the superintendent a couple of times, who had said something into purchasing. They just hadn't got around to it. And this is how much extra. And you need to be careful of that. The worst thing is we're going to cut it back so much, we end up with the framing crew dead in the water.
Right.
And they got to go home because they don't have the material they need. Okay. We don't want to do that, obviously. Same with roofing and any aspect where you're buying them separately. But here's an example where, your framing guy can't reduce the cost of the framing your lumber company's charging you, but we can save you $500 here of all this excess. And by the way, on a new plan, after you do a takeoff check 3 times, the first 3, then you do it once a quarter the first year. Then you can go about every house you do, every model you have, at least once a year, you should do a takeoff check. Mm-hmm. See where you are, because it's strange how sometimes things change
right,
out of control. All righty. Now I got another one I don't have a clever term from, but I'm going to call this solving one problem and creating another. So this is one I've used in presentations over the years. This was Calgary. And what had happened here was, if you see what's happened here, see all these blocks with the angle cuts here?
Right.
This has 3 angles. And there ends up being, you turn the landing and go up, there's 26 of them. So you got 26 cuts with 2 to 3 angles in them, all the way up the stairway and around. And that's going to take a good framer at least an extra hour. He's going to be a couple minutes a cut to get those fit and nail them in. Some of it will take him an hour and a half, 2 hours. And why would anybody do this? That's crazy, except it was the drywaller that asked the framer to do it, because this company, Pure Production Houses, had a big fat book with thousands of different selections for handrails and brackets, little rosettes. They let every customer have any handrail they wanted. And which you don't need to do that to sell production homes. Most people just have one, and it's called the handrail. Some people will give them a choice of, 4 or 5 or something.
Right.
But however you do that, you decide where those brackets are going to go. And if you're lucky, they can go on a stud. But if you want to be safe, so we're just going to put a block in. Okay, here. I accidentally went forward a screen here. Let me back up here, page up. We're going to do 3 or 4 up here and 3. We're going to get that 26 down to, depending on the stairway, anywhere from 4 to 7. With the landing, you're going to have a couple extra. What was happening was the drywaller was having to come back, or the framers having to come back and bust holes. The hardware guy would mark where the brackets have to go on the wall. And he'd usually take a hammer and punch a hole there. So what happens is framer comes back, extra trip, has to knock the holes in the drywall and put the backing in, right? Then the drywaller has to come back 1 trip, 2 trips, 3 trips, sometimes a 4th, in order to get the drywall right in those patches. And then the painter has to come back twice. We have a total of 6 trips to solve this problem. So drywaller went to the framer and said, hey, would you guys just block every damn space? Block every one of them. I said, well, yeah, it's a kind of a pain, but we'll do it for you. You never complain about our framing. You're good to work with, so we'll do it for you. So no one ever solved the problem. But by doing that, we wasted, today, we've got, if you added that all up in these, and they say, oh, there's always scrap on the site. It's incredible, Denise. Everything that everybody says there's scrap on the site. And we've had people really get on top of things to where they're able to reduce the lumber buy and still have enough scrap on the site. So here's 4 things to do. And we're doing a really quick thing here today. And maybe down the road, we'll do a longer one. So how do we fix it? And I got rolling around and thinking about the builders we've fixed things with. And you know what? Most people wouldn't come up with this right off, but there's 6 critical constituents if you want to solve these problems. And seriously, you can save typically 10% of the lumber that goes in a house. So obviously the framer, okay? You got to have your framer involved. And then you have to have your lumber dealer. And sometimes engineered wood, truss, and panel all comes from the same. I've run into builders where that's 4 different people, 4 different companies. So whatever's applicable to you is applicable. The third one, builder construction site, okay? Then you got to have builder purchasing site and make sure you have them both. They will look at it differently, and you'll find more if you have both of them. And then we have architecture and design, which may be internal, maybe external, whatever it is, you've got to have them involved. And by the way, most of them, there's exceptions, but most of them don't ever think about this very much. Example would be a 12-2 by 12-2 bedroom. No good can come of that. You're going to use extra drywall, extra flooring, extra wood. Will any customer pay you for that extra 2 inches? Answer, no. At least get it 12-2 by 12-0. That'll take care of a fair amount of it. But a 12-2 by 12-2, or if you have a end of a hallway, it ends up, you measure it from the back and it's 12 foot, 2.5 inches. Just make it 12 foot and we just save lumber. So it's thinking about. Then, of course, we have the engineer. And architects and design are really good at designing great looking stuff, but not at efficiency. They rarely even were trained in that. Engineers will absolutely make sure you cover your fanny, that you'll meet every code. They're really great at that, but most aren't good at doing it efficiently. We see this constantly. Again, there are happy exceptions, but they're pretty rare. So what would happen? You want to fix this? What would happen if we got these 6 constituents together with the plans and sat down and said, how can we reduce the amount of timber in these houses? There are all sorts of builders who are doing 2x4, 24-inch inside walls. Can't do it on every one of them, but a lot of them you can, and it works just fine if you do it right. There are builders like David Weekley that has it in about 2/3 of their houses nationwide, runs 2x6, 24-inch exterior walls. Now, if you're OSB all the way around the house or whatever you're using right now, plywood, whatever, the 2x4 versus 2x4 16-inch center versus 2x6 24-inch center usually comes out about a wash. So you're not saving a lot of wood there, but you are saving labor for your framing. You got a more efficient thermal envelope. Insulation's a little easier to do. So there's definite benefits from that. People don't do this. Go find me a builder who can document this. And by doing that, they got to give me their phone numbers and I'll call them all and ask them that they have actually have on a regular basis these constituents together and go through the plans. And you need to go through them early and you need to go through them at mechanical stage before you put any insulation in and walk that house. It's astounding. I've never done, or let me put it in a positive way, every one of these we've ever done either up front in the design process or at mechanical stage. Everyone has saved money for not just the builder, but also for the trade, made it more efficient and improved the product. It literally works every time. Now we have a bit of a sophisticated way of doing that. We have, formats and the questions all together that you have to ask and stuff that we've collected over the years. So it might be a little easier for us, but you can do a whole lot on your own if you'll just do this. Okay. So what if you actually talk to these folks and listen to them? So here's your steps, quick, and what it goes is very quickly, but say an article will be coming out in a couple of months, a column on this with more detail for you. So you're going to set design standards that apply to all plans. You know, this is how we build, and make sure they end up in your scopes of work. You know, this is how we do headers. This is how we frame our doors. This is how we do cripples. I mean, the things we see waste constantly, too many jacks, too many kings, too many cripples, all that are unnecessary. And we see headers festooned. Where you do need headers, we see them overbuilt. And we see all sorts of places where you don't need a header because there's no load on that wall, you know, under a gable end. And we'll see big fat 2x12 sandwich or timber strand headers where there's no wall. And it's everywhere. So we're going to set those standards up front and make sure we're training our framers to understand them. And they can understand them. We've seen it over and over. They can do it, and they will do it. It saves them labor, and you're going to be paying the going rate on framing no matter what. And when they start to understand, whoa, if we follow these standards, we actually save labor, we're more profitable, and we're helping the builder be more profitable. It's a good combination. So you're going to do a review at the, some people call it black line stage of a new plan, or the CAD blockout stage, and then do a review at construction drawings. Really important. If we got anybody listen to this who doesn't do construction drawings, every minute that you save doing construction drawings is going to save you an hour in the field, or every dime you spend on it is going to save you $1 in the field. There's just no excuse for not having fully detailed construction drawings. Then ensure that your bid package matches your build package. I always refer to that as the start package, but you know, bid package matches your build package. Some people call it bid, start, build. That's kind of nicer to say. Your POs. We see this constantly, and we hear about it in our lean sessions. The trades come in and say, yeah, we bid on this, suppliers too. But then when we actually get the start package and the build on it, and the POs, there's some changes that have been made here. And then, you know, the project manager says, come on, Donnie, do this for me. You can make it up on the next house. Not a good way to play the game. So then critical, and, you know, Denise, it's just astounding that hardly anybody does this. An on-site review at mechanical stage. If you do nothing else, you go to build a new model, stop it before the insulation drywalls goes on. At minimum, you're going to get foundation, frame, and your mechanicals. You might want to bring your roofer too, maybe your foundation guy, and you're going to go through that house, walk through it step by step, and look at everything you can do to make it work better for everybody. It always works every time. And you can do it in 90 minutes, 2 hours at the most. So don't tell me you don't have time to do that, because it'll pay off. Then if you do this whole process with all your trades, then you would also do an on-site review at final with finished trades. That's our subject today. Just letting you know the same process works with your finished trades. And then check that plan up every 1 to 2 years and get in the habit of doing reviews, both on paper and walking in the field, with one plan for a month. Maybe it's going to be, you know, the third Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. We're going to review a plan. Make sure your framer knows, your favorite framer, your mechanical guys, your architect. We're going to review a plan. It's what we do. So get in the habit of doing that, and you're going to be amazed at how much more efficient you get with not just your lumber, but a lot of other aspects too. There's a perception of, you know, why don't people do this? That we don't have enough time. And it's a silly off-base perception, because it saves you so much time if you do it. It's truly an investment, not an expense. In hundreds of reviews like this, each one has reduced costs to suppliers, builders, trades. Each one has improved the product. Each one has reduced questions, confusion, phone calls, what we kind of lump together as brain damage, okay? And you know what we find? Suppliers and trades are always willing to participate, always. It's never a problem getting in there to do it, because they see how much it's going to help, okay? So last slide, outcomes, yeah, savings on lumber, yes, but try to imagine if you did something similar with all your suppliers and trades, you know, with your flooring people, with drywall. It's amazing what you can find in drywall, with your roofing, with your outside siding, brick, stone, trim, whatever you do. It's there. So improve profit for all, improve product, improve process, time savings, not expense. A structured process helps tremendously, but you can do a really significant amount of this on your own. If you want to ask me for more detail or have me send you this new presentation that'll be more like 40 or 50 slides, just drop me a note, let me know, and I'll make sure you get that.
I'm sure people will. So the bottom line here is that you can't control the lumber prices, but you can reduce the cost, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for this, Scott. This is really a great example of how people can save money when they don't think they can. I really appreciate your putting this together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.